All right, and we are live. So I'm Jason Hull, and I'm hanging out here with Jameson Brandon, who I discovered through a PDF that looked pretty interesting about basically getting an edge with smart drugs. So I'm excited to have you here. Jameson, tell us a little bit about why people should even care about what you have to say or why they should trust you to know about this stuff.
Because we're all driven by fear and thinking that we can get an edge by using the littlest thing, we'll do it. That's why you should listen. But besides that, I've got over 10 years with personally dealing with being diagnosed with ADHD, obviously having issues with focus. Most people don't really accomplish much in the business world when it comes to having dealing with lack of focus and clarity. And so I've been able to accomplish quite a bit. I think I got a cool story, and I got a lot to share about smart drugs.
Cool.
So that's why people should continue to tune in.
Exciting. All right. So you've got a little bit of wind. It sounds like a little bit of wind coming through your mic. Just something's blowing on you. You must be exciting over there. All right. So Jameson, there were all these words in your PDF and everything that I was reading that really were new to me. So introduce people to what are smart drugs. What are these?
Smart drugs, quite simply, are cognitive enhancers. They help us with short-term and long-term memory. They help us with recall. They help us with retention, and they help us with our ability to focus.
It sounds good. So I saw this. Have you seen the movie Limited or Limitless? Limitless. So I saw the movie Limitless, yes. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, who on the planet wouldn't want to have this ability? He gets basically, the character in the movie takes some sort of drug, and then he becomes this superhuman thinker. And he's able to pick up things, remember things, retain things, even do martial arts that he saw in movies years ago. Like, he does all this crazy stuff, and he's like taking over the world, right? So I saw this, and I was like, oh, that would be so great. How powerful would it be if I could just have a slight mental edge over my competitors? If I had a slight edge over the people around me? What if my thinking were crisp, sharp? I knew what to do. This sort of idea. And now I'm sure the movie is an exaggeration of what's possible right now in the marketplace, but there's probably some ability to have some edge. And how real is that? Like, what's the reality?
I feel like it's very real. Like, even matching the level of confidence and recall that the character had, I do believe is possible. Is it possible from just the substance alone? No, it's going to take other things. But here's the cool thing about it is it's a doorway. It is a gateway substance to more clarity and to like these advanced levels that you saw the character like him get into. It's actually really windy. I'm gonna try and go inside real quick as we're chatting.
It like picked up right before we got on.
I got a crazy Italian family and they're all over upstairs cooking. So let's see if I can
sound good already.
Yeah, is better.
Sound great.
Okay. All right. So let's try that again. So is it possible to? Hold on. Maybe we'll pull this up.
You're right. As long as we can hear you, we're gold. So.
All right, cool. So is it possible to become a character like in Limitless? I absolutely believe that it is. Would that occur from just taking a substance? No. You would need other things to go along with it. But it's, as I was saying, it's a gateway or doorway into a greater and deeper level of confidence. So it's kind of like when you know that you can remember things and you don't need to write things down, or like somebody just shouts a phone number at you. Even little things like that are like little dopamine hits that boost up your confidence. And then once confidence starts to get boosted up, naturally you turn into a more resolute character, right? Like your inner confidence grows as your outer abilities grow. So I do believe that type of character is possible. Would it be like I take this pill and I'm all of a sudden Bradley Cooper in Limitless? No.
Okay. But so what did you first notice when you first started taking your first sort of smart drug?
Well, I noticed because one of the common things with ADD and ADHD is that you have a million things going on in your head. You have a million thoughts. It's like a constant stream and download of ideas and inspiration. And it's like most people don't really know what's going on. And after a while, you start to devalue those things, but it doesn't stop it from happening. So the biggest thing that I saw right out of the gate from probably the minute that it kicked in, the very first substance that I tried, as soon as it kicked in, the ability to take a thread, like a idea or thought in my mind, and just run that all the way through to conclusion became readily available. So instead of your average person, and this goes beyond ADD and all that too, learning disorders, but your average person, they still are able to grab a thread or a thought and run with it. But even then, the details and the amount and the depth of focus that they're able to have isn't as much as what you would get with a nootropic. So a nootropic opens up that possibility to be able to have infinite clarity on what you're doing.
What is a nootropic? That's a new word for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening or watching. What is nootropic? What does that mean?
So let's throw all the words out there. It's called nootropics. It's called smart drugs, cognitive enhancers, brain drugs, and probably 50 other things. They all mean the same thing. There is natural substances that when taken have a cognitive effect, and there's pharmaceutical based. So we have natural and pharmaceutical based or substances. Good thing is, and the cool thing is most of these have been studied for a very long time. And those are what we're talking about when we speak of nootropics.
How long is a very long time? Give us an idea.
Thousands of years. Bacopa is a natural nootropic, or a nutraceutical it's called. And it's been researched and studied since, I believe, one of the original China or Japan dynasties. So we're talking thousands of years. And then racetams, which is a pharmaceutical-based substance, has been studied since the 60s. So the very first racetam, which is created in a lab, it's not a natural thing, was created in the 60s and been researched since then.
Interesting. Fascinating. So what you were just talking about earlier sounds like probably every CEO, entrepreneur type of person ever, right? A very difficult thing for entrepreneur personality types is shiny object syndrome. We hear about that all the time. And so we're not able to get things done because we have so many ideas. So every entrepreneur that I know has 100 business ideas, 100 directions they could go in for each one. And there's a million things right now I'm thinking I could list build, I could do this, I could create funnels, websites. I need to create one-time offer, all these things, right? And we get really overwhelmed and really crazy. And then I find that I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. And so what you were talking about, being able to focus on one thread to completion, sounds pretty great. That sounds like a powerful difference.
Yeah, and again, it's a doorway, right? So, and again, I don't know the significance of this because I haven't interviewed hundreds of thousands or millions of people. I mean, there's almost 7.3 billion people on the planet. So I don't know if everybody deals with the same thing that somebody that's been diagnosed with ADD deals with, but having all those things hit you, ideas, concepts, directions to go, and options. It's like showing up to a restaurant and having 3,000 different, foods on the menu. What do you pick? Especially if they have pictures on all of them. I mean, my God, I'd have 10 main dishes. So, that I think is natural or common to a certain degree with everybody on the planet. The depth and other pieces of it, I'm sure, are different between individuals. But being able to follow one thread through to completion is so empowering. Because what happens is, first and foremost, we're only able to have a certain amount of decisions. We're only capable of a certain amount of decisions per day. Scientists believe that it's about 60,000. I think it's a little more than that. So if we can only make 60,000 decisions in a day, that means capacity-wise in our brain, we're going to deplete out by mid-afternoon probably, depending on what type of person you are. Which is why some people will go through an experience of not really being able to determine what they want to have for something simple like dinner. What should I wear out to dinner? When those easy decisions become hard, that's when you can pretty much assume that you've hit your limit in terms of brain fatigue. Now that brain fatigue, if it's happening every single day, then it's happening with an entire concept or an entire direction that you're trying to move in. So just think of how limited we actually are as an individual if per day we're hitting like our max or capacity around like 2-3 o'clock, which again, most people have like post-lunch crash and they get like the afternoon sleepies to where like they need a nap in the afternoon. Like that's very common now. It's so much so to where like 5 Hour Energy makes fun of it in their commercials. And like 10 years ago, nobody was really talking about that. So these limitations that we all have, like are very serious.
I think some people wake up in the morning and then get stuck in analysis paralysis, think about all the things they should do for their morning. Like, should I work out? Should I eat healthy? Some people just look in their refrigerator and are stuck. Or they look in the pantry and they're like, what do I eat? Like they're just freaking out. Let's talk about nootropics. Where's the place to start? Like if somebody's just getting started, what would be your first recommendation to go to? What's basic foundation, like just getting started?
Basic and foundation, I really want to start in basic, which is, everybody's pretty much had a coffee for the most part. And so like what that causes. That causes like a 2 to 3 hour roller coaster ride, and then you kind of start to fizzle out, sometimes crash, depending on the amount of milk, cream, sugar that's added to it. So where you could start is you could start with coffee, but eliminate the jitters. Most people don't know this, but L-theanine, which is a natural branch chain amino acid, you can get it in Walgreens. You can get it over the counter anywhere. 200 milligrams of L-theanine with a cup of coffee will actually almost completely eliminate the jitters. So that right there would be a great place to start, because what that's giving you is pure, clean, mental, cognitive uptake. That's it. So there's no crash. There's no like, reactivity and like, aggression and jitters.
Cool. Type that weird word in the chat here. So some people are asking for it here. Just type that word in, because okay. It looks like Ltheanine. Okay.
Exactly. Most of the stuff, it's like, who spelled this or came up with this? So 200 milligrams with cup of coffee.
Great. All right.
Because I'm like super sensitive to caffeine, and like coffee really does it to me for some reason. And so that right there was where I started. And then let's talk about the next step. The next step would be something that already has it built in. So yerba mate or yerba mate, however you want to pronounce it, and matcha green mixed together is incredibly powerful. And it already has L-theanine in it. Green tea naturally has that amino acid combined in the plant itself. So that's why when you drink green tea, you get like really good cognitive uptake, but you don't really get the jitters. And when you combine that with yerba mate, which has been used in mostly Far East, like China, Japan, Asia, for probably at least 1,000 years, they used to take it. Monks used to take yerba mate to stay up all night so that they could meditate.
Right.
So very powerful substance.
All right. So that would be a better drink than doing coffee then.
If you don't like coffee, or you don't want to mess with like going and buying L-theanine, just go get yerba mate and matcha green tea. Blend it together. Use a percolator, cold press, whatever you're using, and do a cup of that in the morning on an empty stomach.
Cool. All right. So what's next then?
So what would be next would be actually to get into natural nootropics, or what are called nutraceuticals. Now this means that these are being derived from like plants and herbs and things like that. So they're not being created in a lab. Now the pill, might be assembled in a lab to put it in a bottle to get it to you, but for the most part, it's very natural. And so that's the next place that I would jump into. And that would be one of 3 products. That would be Natural Stacks makes the first one that I recommend, which is called Celtep. And it's an artichoke-based blend. It deals with uptake. Your ATP is affected by this. It deals with your long-term potentiality, which is called LTP. It deals with like your perception, and your color is immediately like brought up. And so it has like a very good euphoric feel to it. Dopamine is affected by this. So dopamine is a big precursor to feeling good and, again, cognitive uptake. So I'd start with that product.
Yeah, type that in there.
Which this costs money. This is not free. It costs money.
Right.
Natural stacks. And the product is CellTap.
Nice.
And so there's 3 products. CellTap is the one I recommend the most because what naturally happens is your brain, your body gets adapted to things, right? So you do the same workout for too long in a row, you get used to it. You eat the same foods, you get used to it. So it's the same thing with these. And CellTap is the one product that I noticed I could consistently take 30, 60, 90 days, etc. And I really didn't start to pattern it in any sort of way. So it didn't lose its effectiveness. It didn't turn into this mundane thing. It continually just delivered. That's very important.
All right. So the benefits of CellTap you mentioned. So I want to tackle one other issue. So another issue that a lot of people have isn't just fatigue, mental fatigue and getting tired, but also stress and feeling really stressed.
Yeah. And so stress creates free radicals in the brain. Free radicals take away from focus and cognitive performance. And so an important thing to mention is CellTap and the other 2 products, which I'll mention in a minute, they have what's called cytitocholine or cytocholine inside of them. Now, about 99% of the population is they don't have enough. They're
deficient.
They're lacking. Deficient. There we go. They're deficient in choline, and this is found in everything. It's found in foods. Like your meat, your vegetables, all has it in it, but in very low amounts. So most people are low on this to begin with. And then when you start to add in too much decision making, maybe other poor choices in diet like wheat, gluten, maybe there's a higher effect in that person to those substances, and you start to see that lower and lower and lower. So a lot of the fog and fatigue comes in just from low level of choline. So cytocholine or alpha GPC are 2 substances that, again, they're natural, so they're nutraceuticals that provide this.
Okay.
And that's something that would help somebody that's dealing with that. Now, the 2 next products I was going to mention, we might as well just get these out there, is Alpha Brain by a company called Onnit, and then Maven Labs creates a product called Brain Stack. They are almost identical in their ingredients. Brain Stack is a little bit cheaper. Alpha Brain is a little bit more money. They both about 30-day supply, and these have cytocholine or alpha GPC already in them. Very, very important because that's a precursor to dopamine once again. And dopamine is one of the big things that we're looking for here. Dopamine is that feeling of feeling good, euphoric. Also love is associated with dopamine, which is why when you eat a piece of chocolate, because it has raw cocoa in it or cacao, it is high in PEA. PEA triggers dopamine. So that's why people have that love-like feeling when they eat chocolate.
Dark chocolate. I feel good when I eat dark chocolate.
You do, right? Euphoric. Yes.
So
that's PEA.
Are these things addictive? Some people might be wondering about that.
I think
if it's messing with.
I think anything is addictive. I think that's a great question. And here's where I think that you start to footprint the addiction itself. Is the substance addictive? No. The only ones that are a few of the pharmaceuticals. Adderall and modafinil actually do have addictive-like tendencies kind of built into the product itself because of what they affect. We'll talk more about that. But natural nutraceuticals, natural nootropics, no, not really. What you would start to footprint as an addiction, though, is the feeling that you get. So what you start to do is you start to chase that high. Just like a drug, just like any other substance. It's like that. Yeah, that feeling that you get, that maybe it just happened the first time that you did it or the first time that you went through it, and maybe you're just chasing that first time feeling again, or every time you take it, you get that feeling, so you're chasing that feeling.
Okay, so what you've told us about so far, we're going to be less stressed, we're going to have better mental faculties, we're going to be able to deal with things throughout the day longer, we're going to have less mental fatigue, less fog. All right, so this is sounding pretty good. What's next then? It sounds like it keeps going. How deep's this rabbit hole?
It does. There's really no end to it because it's like I've been using these substances now for 5 years, I want to say, and very aggressive experimentation because I'm looking for I want to quantify the result. And a lot of times people, with fitness and weight loss, going to the gym, what's the quantitative result? Well, I lost weight. I look better. Now, even if you eliminated all the how I feel stuff, you would physically in the mirror be able to see a difference.
Results don't lie.
Exactly. When I first started taking this stuff, it was tons of case studies, personal stories that you can find all over the internet, forums, YouTube videos. And now with nootropics, it's really blowing up. So it's like you have all this information and unfortunately a lot of disinformation. It becomes hard to distinguish what does this actually do? Does this work? So that was a big piece for me because even going back a few years ago, forums were filled with people that were like, oh man, I'm taking 8 grams of this and 2 grams of that. And it's just time out. What is that actually doing? So what you should notice right out of the gates is a deeper ability to be able to focus. So like I said, take a strand or thought and run with that thing until it's done. That should be some very obvious surface level examples of it. But as you start to take these longer, the thing that I started to notice is my recall was incredible. And my recall towards things that I don't even really remember doing, it's I knew that I knew these things, but I don't remember where I learned them from. And so being able to tap into things that you learned in the past, even if it was in the movie Limitless, you talked about, he just glances at something like a corner of a book and he has recall on that. You start to notice things like that over time. Long-term memory, short-term memory recall, you start to make really huge assumptions in terms of what you can remember. To give you some specific examples, it's not just things as simple as a phone number, but it's somebody could shout out a full direction path to me and I'd be able to remember it. So a 15-minute car ride, I'd be able to remember. My recall, if I made that car ride at any other point, was instantaneous. I didn't even have to pull up the maps or, really get out Google Maps or anything to actually make it back to there. If I've been there once, and this is still true to today, if I've been there once, whether I was driving or not, I can get there again.
I'm going to have to try some of this out. Somebody gives me directions, and after the first 3 steps, I'm like, wait, I probably should write this down.
Yeah, we're hilarious in the U.S. with how we give directions. I've traveled all over the world, and where I was last year, for the last year and a half, I was in Asia and Australia. And in Australia, it's funny because they're just right, left, right, left, right, left to get you there. In America, we're yeah, the first thing you want to do is you go down about 150 yards, and then there's this guy standing at the corner. You make a left, but make sure you go between 2 and 3 o'clock because otherwise the guy won't be there and you'll lose the corner. Then you go up, and there's this gas station on the right. You don't turn into the gas station.
We try to paint the whole picture and experience.
Too much, way too much. It's just tell them.
A big
left,
yellow
right,
barn,
left,
you went
right.
too far. Somebody said in the comments. Yes.
yes,
you went too far. Oh, great. Now I know I screwed up. All right. Wait, was that what I was supposed to do or not supposed to do? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So what happens next after you start with this basic stuff that I just outlined is you get into the stronger substances. And what's beautiful is these things that I already mentioned then become the base. They become the foundation of what you can then build upon. And the reason is because they're not super strong to where you have to worry about I can only take this. You can start to build on it. And what you start to learn and realize about yourself as you build on these on this foundation is your capacity gets greater. So your capacity to take in more information, remember it, remember even the thread that we stopped at a couple minutes ago before we just went on that tangent, those things become infinitely easier. And then what that creates is more confidence in the individual because they can make greater assumptions. They can let that gap of assumption become bigger with what they can, what they know they can deal with and what they know they can do. So that's when you start to tap into racetams and pharmaceuticals. So pharmaceuticals would be your modafinil, which that's the actual one of the designer names. So that's your
this
provincial.
Is going. So we've got natural stack Siltep, and then we're doing either Onnit or Maven Labs. Their Alpha Brain or Brain Stack, one of those. And then this is what's next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is when it actually starts to get Very, very good. I personally like racetams the most, but I've experienced and been on Ritalin, Adderall, and modafinil. Modafinil I like the most outside of racetams, because modafinil, if you just dose at about 200 milligrams, which is standard dosing per day, or less, like I know some people that are at like only 50 to 100, you get a very good euphoric feeling. Focus is increased, and motivation really is increased. And that for a lot of people is enough. Like they don't need anything else. And at the lower doses, you don't really get the side effects. Funny thing is that modafinil was created, I think, back in the 60s or 70s as an alertness drug. So it was actually given to people during, what was that, Vietnam War, I think? And they did that because it was a wakefulness promoter. They needed to be alert. So it deals with like the alert mechanisms of the brain more than dopamine and the feel-good stuff. So having that alertness is big because, again, we can start to train ourselves to naturally tap into that deeper, just like everything else. So I like modafinil out of those the most, but Adderall and Ritalin is prescribed for the ADHD disease.
So so you would recommend after the first stacks that you had mentioned, maybe Modafinil, but or whatever.
I wouldn't, not in the U.S., and I can't really suggest that because it's not legal in the U.S. I think you have to get a prescription. You can buy it over in Europe, and there's websites like all you got to do is a Google search, and you'll be able to get it. The only risk you run is I think they might be able to confiscate it. So I wouldn't immediately jump into modafinil just because of the loopholes and different issues you might deal with. Racetams is where I'd go into next because those you can buy.
So explain racetams. So it's and this sounds plural. So this is a lot of different things, or?
Yeah, it's basically like a whole family now. It started with piracetam, which is the very first one discovered back in 1960, and I don't remember why it was even like they were even looking in this area, but it's kind of one of those things to where they researched it for one thing and discovered that it had this effect over here and then started using it over here. You know, Viagra works in different ways, not just to help with, you know, erectile dysfunction. It helps in all these blood pressure issues now too that they give it to old ladies. So it's kind of one of those things to where the benefits of it are very widespread. And so it started with piracetam, and then they started figuring out how to break down the molecular structure differently in that. And I think now there are about 16 different racetams and racetam family-based substances. Some of these are derived from B vitamins. Some of these are derived from natural choline. Some of these are derived from natural substances like that, and then fleshed out to be a stronger substance. But they're considered pretty safe. A lot of research done. If you just look up piracetam, which is, I'll type that in the chat.
Yeah, so with the racetams, because there's so many and it's something, you know, different, where would you go to get these, and what's your recommendation?
You can go to there's a lot of websites. I use Peak Nootropics, peaknootropics.com. I'm sure I can toss in an affiliate link if you guys want to give me credit. But I've been using them for 4 years. Like ever since I started doing bulk racetams, I've been using them, and the quality is insanely good. And so they didn't, you know, jump on the bandwagon now that it's hot and popular, which you see like there's just so much of that now. Free shipping offers to get you nootropics, being mass blasted and advertised all over the place. These guys were around in the very beginning. You know, 2-3 years ago, even racetams and nootropics weren't really being talked about outside of like Joe Rogan and Dave Asprey.
I put your affiliate link there. There we go.
Oh, cool. I appreciate that. And I'm trying not to pay attention to the live chat because I know that people are asking questions, but it's totally distracting.
But mostly people are commenting, so it's just they're just kind of along for the ride. So, so nice. So piracetam would be kind of the first one, maybe. Is that like the flagship of Peak Nootropics?
Yeah, and that's where I would start. And so piracetam, and again, you start like they give you dosing, like they give you the scooper and everything. Like they don't just send you a big bag of powder and say good luck. They send you like basic dosing instructions. And on their site, Peak Nootropics, they put a lot of time into actually giving low level, mid, high level dosing examples and what you would actually do, because you can work up your level of piracetam quite high. You can get up to, you know, I know some guys doing 10 grams a day, which is quite high.
So doing all these things, do you feel like a superhuman compared to a lot of people now, or what's
dude, you know what? I do. And it sounds like a little cliche, and everybody wants to talk about Limitless the movie and is that possible? But I really do feel that, because it opens the doorway to those things becoming more of a reality. Again, as I start to make more assumptions, my confidence goes up. It can't not go up because you have proof and evidence. Every belief, let's take a step back, every belief that we hold as an individual is based off of proof and evidence. Like if I were to ask you why you believe in anything you believe in, you would have reasons why. That's true of all of us. So as I start to build up more proof and evidence in my little mental library and experience recall of like, this thing happened here, oh my gosh, I dealt with this situation here, I was so on it in this social dynamic conversation over here, you know, I was able to do this speech over there, oh my gosh, I just walked on stage. Like all those things start to build up and you can't not be more confident. So then confidence grows and you continue to stretch the capacity. So it's literally like this stacking effect that happens. And the longer you use these substances, the more you tend to get out of them.
Sounds really awesome.
I do feel
sounds really awesome. So I'm excited to try some of this stuff out. So I'll rewatch this, and I'm sure a lot of people will rewatch this and go through and do these things out in this order. So how can people get your ebook?
Oh, you know what? Let's drop a link, because that's a great place to start. Like I'm sure through life here I've forgotten more than I can remember, which is why I write these books, because you know, that do it? Oh, it's doing a smiley face. It's not letting me send a link. So I'll link it to you. Can I send it to you?
Yeah. Give me the link, and when I post a blog post or whatever, I can put it in there.
Yeah. So we'll get you guys. We'll get you guys a link. I basically wrote a 55-page report with over 100 medical references and journals that I dug up, talking about nootropics. And I break down all the racetam family. I break down modafinil, Adderall, and there's actually adrafinil, which is like a replacement for modafinil. Has a little bit less of the side effects because modafinil raises liver enzyme levels, and so you have to really watch. You have to keep an eye on your diet, and so adrafinil doesn't have that effect in studies that they've done. So there's some cool stuff like that in there, as well as like other lifestyle changes you can make to increase the effects of this. Like if you add in stillness and meditation with use of smart drugs, again, it just takes.
Can you type the name of that modafinil replacement?
Yeah, adrafinil. So again, adrafinil is available at nootropics. I'm not associated with them at all. They ship on time. They give me my stuff. Cool. That's all I care about.
So, great. So, you'd mentioned a lot of different like nutraceuticals. Are there any others that you think are worth mentioning here during this for people that are getting started or starting out, or have we covered it?
You know what? I'm all about like, just let me give you the few things that you can take and go and start executing on today in your life to make change. And so while I would love to just tell you everything that I know, I don't feel that'd be beneficial. So I think what we've covered would be great. Get the PDF. You know, again, it's free download. Get the PDF if you want to go into deeper detail of these substances, and go from there.
Give me the send me the link over on your Skype real quick.
I actually logged out of Skype.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Didn't have. Yeah, it screws with the GoToWebinar and Blab.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. All right. So I'll
send it to you
sounds
after.
Good. So cool. So Jameson, I really appreciate you coming out, hanging out with me. It's really cool. So once you have this mental edge, and it sounds like what you're saying is there's something more. Like it's not just taking the smart drugs, but there's also maybe some mindset, lifestyle, things like that.
Totally. So that's like the next level of it is like, and again, I love this stuff because it's like it's a doorway to the next step. So even if tomorrow they were to come out with research and say, oh, actually nootropics suck and they wear your brain out in 100-year lifetime, that would be okay for me because that led me to the next step. And those two things combined give me a huge mental edge. So I'm all about like weighing out like cost versus reward. And so for me, what nootropics did, and again, I know tons of entrepreneurs who use them, thousands, really, hundreds of thousands, I'm sure. And I don't personally know all of them, but what that leads to is using these substances then leads to greater awareness. And greater awareness then combined with other lifestyle changes make it that much more potent. So when I add in, again, if you're familiar with ADHD, you know that the big thing is focus and hyperactivity. So you just can't sit still, right? So teachers can't stand you, and they want to put you in, special needs class. At least that's what it was for me. So I went through all that, and so when you add in like a piece like stillness and meditation, even just 15 minutes a day, then that gives you a deeper emotional intelligence, really, because you're able to control yourself more. And what I mean by that is, in the moment of like that hyperactivity starting, you can kind of drive a spike in between that and say, well, wait a second, I'll just calm back down. So, and it might sound kind of silly, like, oh, everybody should be able to do that, but you really can't, especially with somebody who has ADHD. It's like before you know it, you're just wound up and you're running at 1,000 miles an hour. So how do we slow that down? Something as simple as meditation helps do that, because it's that inner reflection time that creates awareness and space. Like we were talking about it the other day when you had
instead of being reactive to everything.
Yeah. So it helps you drive a spike in between the moment of a situation occurring and your decision on that. There's always like the amount of time might seem small based on the situation that you're in, but there's always at least a split second that I have as an individual to make the decision of how I'm going to react. And most people they don't have that wedge and that spike in that. So it's like, again, I told you the other day, we're like Coffee Nation. So the moment that something happens, like if somebody comes up to me and they need something right now, like my natural default is going to be to like, get like worked up, get like in a frenzy about it. And you don't really realize you're doing it, but that's a lot of people's defaults. And so things like meditation, mindfulness, those things drives a spike in there. So it gives you that space so that you actually see in the moment of needing to make a decision, it's like you have more time. You've created time. You slowed down time. Something happens there to where you have this greater awareness that actually, well, wait a second, how do I want to respond here?
Okay, I posted your link.
And this becomes infinitely more important in high octane and high pressure situations.
I love it. Love it. So I posted your link because I'm the host. Maybe it lets me. So
I think it does. It just put mine as a smiley face.
Because it's obviously a landing page thing, and it's probably preventing guests and whatever. So I posted your link there so people can get the PDF that are watching this on Blab or on the replay. Check it out. Yeah. Lots and lots of great info. Love the meditation piece. If there was another thing that you would add to it that's outside of the nootropics, like meditation, what would that be?
Most powerful piece outside of meditation and nootropics, get a schedule. And it's so funny because like if you're working a day job, you're like, I got a schedule, Jay, you're silly. You really don't. You show up to work, and work dictates what needs to be done that day. And a lot of times you're carrying over from yesterday, like, oh gosh, I got to finish this month-end report, whatever. But outside of that, like, understand that one,
instead of
that's not really structure. Right. That's not really you co-creating and determining what's going to happen for today. That's just kind of you letting the river take you. And granted, I get it. It's a job. Sometimes a lot of what is being told to you is required. Mm-hmm. I get all that. But understand that that's still not really a schedule. A schedule is like, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock, not because I got to be to work at 6, but I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. because that will give me an hour to really get in my place of power, allow me to meditate, get my morning going before I step into work. And so creating a schedule allows you to dictate how your day unfolds better than just going along for the ride. Like most people, again, you wake up, first thing you do, your phone is within 3 feet. Like over 90% of people aren't more than 3 feet away from their phone all day long. So again, like if we take that morning to get my morning started the way that I want to, that changes my day. And then I can do my meditation. I can come up with a list of like the 3 things that I want to tackle for today. Now, again, in an employee situation, not really as vital as it is when you're an entrepreneur. But if you're an entrepreneur, holy cow, your day will be completely different if you start off with just a morning routine and create a schedule for how you want the day to go. This includes chunking down your time with work blocks. This includes, doing the things that we've all read in hundreds of Huffington Post and Forbes articles, but yet most of us aren't doing.
Right.
So a daily routine is massively important. And I have a whole framework. Maybe we'll do a follow-up. I have a whole framework that, I teach like clients and people that I work with on this, like setting goals, daily routines, actually reflective periods to check in on how far you're progressing, and really taking something that's pretty airy-fairy and quantifying it down into pieces.
Cool. Yeah, that would be really awesome. Well, Jameson, I really appreciate you coming out. It's really cool to hang out with you and meet you and get to know you. I love the whole life hacking aspect, and I think a lot of entrepreneur personality types do. And so I think that this will be really useful. We're getting some thanks here in the chat and some comments.
Yeah,
and I think this will have some great replay value. And make sure everybody you get his PDF. It's the Unbounce Pages link there, and check out his stuff. And any final words that you wanted to say to everybody?
I do actually, and I think in life we tend to complicate things. We complicate potential, we complicate performance, we complicate what's possible. In reality, it's just the simple things done consistently that have the biggest outcomes. So start somewhere. Don't be overwhelmed by like the things you want to accomplish, the person you want to become. Just get started. And little by little, percent by percent, you'll get better every single day.
Awesome. All right. Jameson, thank you.